Srila Prabhupāda ki
Jai.
Srila Maharaj, Srila Gurudev Maharaj
Ki Jai.
Prem Sikha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sarasvatī Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Prabhupāda ki
Jai.
Ananta Vaishnava ki
Jai.
Samagata Bhaktisiddhānta ki
Jai.
Jai Gaura Premanande.
Ande Hari Hari. It's interesting how Srila Gurudev Maharaj disappeared on the appearance day of Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. And it seems that it's like an indication of his humility that on this day is the overwhelming focus. Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. Of course, for his own disciples, appearance and disappearance days of our contemporary acharyas is to not only recount their transcendental achievements and so forth, actually, is to put on a video and watch Maharaj. I think I did that last year, maybe not on this day, maybe it was on his appearance day, but I remember doing that in our class. So it is indeed his disappearance, and I'll mention some. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikayai Tadalam Pari Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Ajnana Timirandas Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhānta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Sarasvatī Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhānta Narayan Iti Namane. Namo Vishnu Padaya Acharya Singha Rupane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Pragyana Keshava Iti Namane. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Iti Namane. Shri Varsavanavi Devi Dayataya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha. Madhurya Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhakti Da Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute. Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtai Dinatarane Rupa Nuga Aviruddhapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harane. Namo Gaura Kisharaya Sakshad Vairagya Murtai Vipralambar Sambudhe Padambujayate Nama. Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namane Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate. Gaura Virbhava Bhumistvam Nirdeshta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namah. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahabhadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gaura tishe nama anarpita charim chirat kurunaya vatirnakalo samarpaitum unatotsvala rasam svabhakti shriyam hari purata sundara dyuti kadamba sandipita sada hridaya kandure spuratu va Sachinandanaha. Nityanandamaham nomi sarvanandakaram param harinama pradam devam avadhuta shiromanim ajanulambita bujo kanakavadato samkirtanaika pitaro kamalaya taksho Vishvambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandhu Vrindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Oh, beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Vishnu Vishnupad, Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Śrīla, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nityananda Paramahansa Astatarasata Sri Śrīla, Bhakti Vedanta, and I pray for his causeless mercy. I offer my Dandavat pranams to all of my Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and I offer my Dandavat pranams the Savior of the whole world. Also, I read from his Vyas Puja offering, and then I also read from the prayer of Srila Prabhupada when he was crossing on the Jaladuta, crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and he Bhakti all over the world. It is by his strong desire, Tar Icha Balavan, his desire, very strong, to give this mission of Mahaprabhu to every living being, everywhere, across the oceans, on the mountaintops, on the islands. He mentions there. Our Srila Prabhupada mentions this. Everywhere, the name of Krishna will be chanted. And that happened. That happened. And it's all happening and will continue to happen. Why? Because of his strong desire to give this bhakti to all living entities. So truly, all of us owe our entire existence. We owe everything to our saviors. And chief of them is Srila Prabhupada. Yes, so, you know, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he also wrote the song that we sing every morning. Śrīla Prabhupāda Padmasambhava by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura while he was still in this world. Did you know that?
Did he hear it sung or he just read it?
Well, he heard, no, I'm not sure, but he was the one that instructed, after reading it, this should be sung. That's why we are singing it also, because that's been in the Gaudiya Mat since that time. It should be adopted in ISKCON, but whatever. Establish that directly, but it would be nice. Mentioned about that composition. Sujanar Buddharadita Pada Yugam Yugadharma Durandara Patravaram Varadabayati style, he said. So it's such a classic. But Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj also wrote in Sanskrit very amazing Sanskrit compositions, three more glorifications of Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, which is found in at the appendix of his book that he wrote called Prapanna Jivanamrita. And I have it here. I'm going to read some of that. Not only that, but he also composed to Rupa Goswami, to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, to Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj. 1 billion names of Krishna, which means 3 lakhs a day. 3 lakhs a day for 10 years. And he completed that vow. Where did he chant? He was looking like a bhajananandi, right? Who was just doing his solitary bhajan. Where did he chant? No. That Chandrasekhar Bhavan, where his later on became the chief Mukt, Chaitanya Mukt. It's described that during the rainy season, whatever little hut that he had was leaking, and he would hold an umbrella and continue chanting. So when he completed that vow, what occurred? Upon his completion of that vow.
Is that when his own guru passed away? Oh, he had the division of Mahaprabhu, the whole Panchatattva.
You use the mic.
Oh, well, I only know that.
Yes, he had the divine vision. Mahaprabhu appeared to him with the Panchatattva, with his associates. And do you remember what he spoke? Mahaprabhu spoke to him. You don't remember? He says, you should not be hesitant or afraid to go forward now and to preach this mission everywhere. Everything will be supplied to you. All men, all money, all everything will be supplied to you. So that order from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he followed that to the letter. Also the story of his accepting Diksha initiation from the topmost of Adut, Nishkinchan Vaishnava, Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj, is also an amazing story which is also reminiscent or in the same line as Srila Narottam Das Thakur. But in this case, Srila Prabhupada approached Srila Gaura Das Babaji and also being directed by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur had given him Harinam when he was very young. And also he gave him a Kurma deity, the deity of Lord Kurmadev, to worship in his childhood. Gave him mantras for worshiping. Actually, he was so brilliant that by the age of 7 years old, he had memorized every shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. He could recite it verbatim. And then he could also give a commentary, explanation of it. We know the story also that Prabhupada told about the mango. Although actually Gurudev didn't emphasize that so much. It seems that it's not so much of a spoken story on these days, but Prabhupada told the story that when he was a small boy.
Very small.
Yeah, very small. I don't know the exact age, but it was probably like 3 or 4 or 5 years old, like that. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur found him in the storage room where they keep the boga and the fruits and vegetables and so forth to offer to the Lord. And the small boy was eating a mango. It was mango season, and he was eating a mango sitting there. Oh, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur told, oh, you know that actually this is the Lord's boga to be offered to him first. That we are not supposed to enjoy this separately from his enjoyment. So it should be offered to him first. So you shouldn't just come into here and then pick up a mango and eat it like that. And that young boy took this so seriously that he took a vow. Can you imagine? Just a young boy taking a vow. I have committed an offense. I'm an aparadhi against the Lord. I'll never take mango again in my whole life. And he actually followed that vow. He never took mango. I've been told that this was heartbreaking for all of his disciples. Because in Bengal, or practically all of India, when mango season comes, that's the time of so much, enjoyment of the king of all fruits, And they could not offer to him. They could not offer to him, even though they offered to the deity and so forth. If they tried, he would say, I am an offender, I cannot take. But you know what they did? They took green mango, and they made many delicious preparations from the green mango, and that he accepted. But he did not accept any ripe mango. They made like green mango chutney, which is a special in Bengal and so forth. So, yeah, also Bhaktivedanta Bharati Maharaj, in his book, Vishuddha Chaitanya Vani, I was looking this morning at what is in that book. And then I downloaded it, but then somehow... Oh, Hansagati Prabhu?
Yes.
Can you give me your phone as a hotspot, because I didn't finish downloading this thing, this article. I'm just reading from the beginning. It's very short, but then it goes to their site, and I was trying to download that. So, Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Maharaj is saying, when my Param Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, along with his disciples, inaugurated the widespread preaching of unalloyed Rupanuga ideology under the guidance and instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, who appeared before Srila Prabhupada, then he was met with opposition at every corner. Okay, wait. What is the with the N or M?
M.
Okay.
Without dust.
Okay. What? Okay. Did he say M or N?
M.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's what I ran into. Your browser is no longer supported. Okay. Book here? You should have Chaitanya Vani.
Do we have to get you in the library, the book?
What?
The book from Srila Bharati Maharaj?
I think so.
Yes, I think so.
Actually, let's see. You know what? I have it here. I have it here.
Oh, we have it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Introduction. Okay. Srimad Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. Okay. Page 65. Oh, no, that's different book. I have it actually on my iPad. I just discovered it. Okay. Okay. Got it. Technology. So he's telling that when my Param Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, along with his disciples, inaugurated the widespread preaching of unalloyed Rupanuga ideology under the guidance and instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates who appeared before Srila Prabhupada. He was met with opposition at every corner. Despite immense opposition, he never deviated even slightly from his righteous objective. Instead, through the media of his disciples and his writings, he completely defeated almost all the heretical ideologies prevalent at the time. And he established the Gaudiya Vichardhara, or the current of Gaudiya Vaishnavism thought. So that's a great achievement. Huh? He completely defeated almost all the heretical ideologies prevalent at the time. And he established the Gaudiya Vichardhara, the current of Gaudiya Vaishnavism thought. So, Srila Prabhupada was the true embodiment of the humility described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Sri Sikshastakam. Where does he describe that? Yes, Trinada Pisunichena, Tarora Pisahishuna, Amanina, Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. He was the embodiment of that humility. With the humility of a blade of grass and the tolerance of a tree, here's the translation of the verse. A person should, while giving due respect to others, without desiring respect for himself, should constantly chant the names of Hari. Srila Prabhupada's humility was especially manifested during the Sri Navadvip Dham Parikrama of 1925, in which he led a group of 5,000 pilgrims along with 108 Mridanga players. We heard this today, but in brief we heard. And in the front of the massive Parikrama party was the deity of Srimad Mahaprabhu riding magnificently atop an elephant. And during that time, a group of people, including Babajis and Jati Gosais, caste-conscious Brahmins born in the Goswami family lineage, they had been losing prestige and donations due to Srila Prabhupada's fearless preaching of the true Gaudiya doctrine as taught by Srimad Mahaprabhu, which, in many cases, contradicted and challenged the tainted philosophies of these antagonists. These persons grew envious of Srila Prabhupada's ever-increasing fame and influence, and they therefore descended upon the Parikrama procession with the wicked intention of taking his life. Srila Prabhupada, however, was unperturbed. He considered the attack merely an attempt to cause him bodily harm. When police officials arrived on the scene and inquired from Srila Prabhupada about who he suspected was behind this attack, he replied, "No one." His disciples were apprehensive about his dismissal of the incident, and they felt that unless they took action against the assailants, it would be impossible to perform parikrama peacefully in the future. In reply, Srila Prabhupada firmly stated, "The incident caused us no harm. Actually, it has proven to be favorable for us. It easily accomplished a great task that otherwise could only have been achieved after spending, could not be achieved even after spending millions of rupees. Because this incident was front page news," he's telling to his disciples, because this incident was front page news, countless persons who had never heard of the Gaudiya Mat, they have now come to know about it. Prominent personalities from distant locations, such as the kings of Tripura, Vardhaman, Coach Bihar, and even Jaipur, they had inquired about the incident. So in this way, although Srila Prabhupada, being an eternally perfected associate of Sri Krishna, was free of faults and their subsequent reactions, still, through his own conduct, he demonstrated the proper application of the following verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 8. Want to guess that? What that is? Yeah? Mm-hmm. This is the most often quoted verse from the Lord Brahma's prayers. Tatenu kampam susamikshamamu bunjana ivatma kritam vipakam hridvag vapurbir vidadan namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadayapak. So, his own conduct, he demonstrated the application of this verse. Here's the translation. One who, while always expecting your mercy, tolerates the results of his previous misdeeds and constantly offers respects to you with his heart, speech, and body, is eligible to receive the inheritance of your lotus feet, Dayabhak. So, our Prabhupada also quoted that in the Nectar of Devotion. Because Dayabhak means inheritance. And so, how does one become eligible to receive an inheritance? In the material world, by taking birth. If he's a particular firstborn and so forth, according to the laws, he automatically gets his inheritance. So that automatic eligibility is being referred to here, that, yes, if someone can live in this way, by always expecting, always anticipating your mercy, and tolerating the results of all of his previous misdeeds, and especially Hrid Vagavapur Vir Vidadan Namaste, offering obeisances to you with his heart, his speech, and his body, then he becomes eligible to attain the spiritual world, Dayabhak. But here it says Mukti Pade. Mukti Pade Sadayabhak. That means the place where liberated souls. But you know, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, yes, he couldn't tolerate even hearing the word mukti anymore. And he replaced that word with bhakti. Bhakti Pade Sadayabhak. Now, there's a section titled His Reputability. Another time, while preparing for the Sri Navadvita Parikrama, Srila Prabhupada, along with his assistant, Sri Paramananda Brahmachari, went to scout an appropriate open space or garden where all the pilgrims attending the Parikrama could stay. In those days, the pilgrims would sleep in such open-air spaces. And only the kitchen would have a canopy. Have we not seen this on the Navadvip Parikrama? All the Bengalis who come, hundreds and thousands of mosquito nets. Yes. Now only the kitchen would have a canopy. In Champakata, they found a large mango orchard with a pond nearby. Finding the space suitable, Srila Prabhupada finalized all the booking arrangements and he returned. That evening, some items were stolen from a residence near the orchard. A first information report, that's called a FIR, against Srila Prabhupada, which stated that he had scouted the area for stealable goods in the morning and returned in the evening to thieve them, was lodged at the local police station. Srila Prabhupada, however, did not respond to this accusation. Now, when Sri Pal Chaudhuri, a very influential local landowner, who owned a tea garden and resided in a very large property that included a helipad used by the British, he came to know about the incident. He immediately marched over to the police station. He was a well-respected member of society, recognized by even the British government, and so the police officials listened to him with due attention. He told them he wanted to file an FIR of his own because his pond had been stolen the previous night.
His pond?
Yes. You never heard this before. Because he heard that an FIR had been filed against Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī. That he came to this area, one local person had some things stolen from their house, and they just assumed it must have been him, because he came, he scoured the whole area, then he came back in the nighttime and stole it. And this is before he brought the whole Parikrama party there, right? But some thief came and stole it. So when Sri Pal Chaudhuri When he heard this, he marched straight over, and he was so influential. Then he told the police, I want to file an FIR because my pond has been stolen the previous night. Confused, the attending officer inquired, Sir, how can a pond be stolen? It is impossible. How can we write a report about a stolen pond? Then Sripal Chaudhuri replied, You are correct. It is impossible. But yet, even more impossible is Sri Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī committing burglary. Are you even slightly aware of his greatness? On the request of Sri Pal Chaudhuri, the FIR against Srila Prabhupada was immediately dropped. So after the complaint was dismissed, the people of Champakata, having realized their mistake in falsely accusing such a divine personality, felt very ashamed. And considering that they had committed a grave offense, they felt the only way to repent was to offer service to Srila Prabhupada, and they therefore donated to the Gaudiya Mutt the Sri Gaur Gadadhar temple, which was served by Dvijavaninath, the younger brother of Srila Gadadhar Pandit. And just see. So the next section is titled His Defense and His Protection of the Rupanugas. Although Srila Prabhupada would silently endure personal attacks against himself, he never for a moment tolerated attacks against either the principles of Rupanuga ideology or those who sincerely followed that ideology. He would not allow even the smallest statements opposing the true philosophy of Srila Rupa Goswami Pad to go unanswered. And in issuing his rebuttals, he gave no consideration to the social status of the person he was debating. If required, he would even file lawsuits against his opponents to establish the authenticity and superiority of the Gaudiya line of thought. It is for this reason that his pranam mantra states, the fourth one, Namaste Gauravani, Srimurtaye Dinatarane, Rupa Nuga Virudhapa Siddhanta Dvantaharane. That you deliver the fallen souls and you annihilate the darkness arising from misconceptions, apasiddhanta, that is opposed, that is virudha, to the precepts enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. Simply put, Srila Prabhupada was indifferent to what others said or did in opposition to him. He never took anything personally. He was instead always carefully engaged in both following and establishing the instructions of our Guru Varga. He tirelessly performed many services, such as publishing bhakti literatures, establishing new temples, performing archan, organizing exhibitions about spiritual knowledge. That's a whole other thing. In the My Beloved Master's book, Srila Bhaktivigyan Bharati Maharaj especially goes into at length about those exhibitions in the section where he's talking about Bhakti Hridaya Bhavan Maharaj and his, because he was in charge of many of those exhibitions. So, tirelessly he performed all these different services, organizing exhibitions about spiritual knowledge and sending his disciples across the globe to preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We become filled with great awe and reverence for Srila Prabhupada simply by hearing about his incessant efforts to bring eternal spiritual welfare to the conditioned souls of this world. The rarity of accepting Krishna Bhakti, the rarity. Once, a young boy came to the mutt with the desire to stay there. And he declared, I will not return home I will only do so if Srila Prabhupada orders me to return. When Srila Prabhupada came to know about this from one of his sevaks, he said, do you think me to be such a stone-hearted person that I will order someone so desirous of residing and serving in the mutt to return home? After roaming around in various universes, Brahmandas, countless living entities have gathered here in this world. It is extremely rare for even a few of these living entities to desire to reside in the mutt. He said here, Brahmandas, not just one Brahmanda, after wandering. So, only very rare and highly fortunate souls nurture such a desire to reside in the mutt. How can I ask such a soul to leave the mutt and return to the service of Maya? Bhav is the real value of kirtan, subsection. Bhav is the real value of kirtan. I especially like this section here. The real value of kirtan is bhav. A few days before Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Prabhupāda manifested his disappearance pastime, he expressed a desire to hear a few special kirtans. To fulfill his request, his sevak brought a devotee who was well known for singing in a very melodious voice with perfect pitch and rhythm, whose voice he knew to be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada's ears. But upon seeing this kirtaniya, Srila Prabhupada said, I do not wish to listen to a well-crafted melodious kirtan, but rather one sung from the core of the heart, sung by one who fully comprehends the bhavs and most transcendental meanings of the kirtan he sings. He then ordered Śrīmad, Bhakti Rakshak, Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Sri Naveen Krishna Vidyalankar to sing Sri Rupa Manjari Pada, and also Tuhu Doya Sagara, Tuhum Doya Sagara, respectively. Now, do you know who that person who was brought? Because Srila Prabhupada expressed, I want to hear certain kirtans to be sung. This is just before he's departing, in his final days.
Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri.
Yes. Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, when he was brahmachari, he used to go on radio programs, you know that, and sing kirtan. His voice was very, very, very pleasurable to hear. But when they brought him to sing, and he talks about this incident later.
Yes, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj himself
Yes.
came up in
Okay, can you use the mic? Can you tell how he expressed that?
Well, actually, I had heard from Shripad Bodhayan Maharaj.
Mm-hmm.
He was giving a talk in Laguna.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big gathering, actually. And one person at the end of the lecture, I thought it very inappropriate, but the person asked him about that incident.
Mm-hmm.
And Bodhayan Maharaj confirmed that incident, elaborated on it, and then he said, you know, the only reason you know about that is because my Guru Maharaj would tell everybody about that incident. He had such humility and such reverence for Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami that he kept alive that incident for everyone to know.
Yes. And he actually considered Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj to be his Siksha Guru. Yeah. So, then Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura ordered two different devotees. First of all, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj to sing Shri Rupa Manjari Pada. He sang that. And then this other devotee, Sri Naveen Krishna Vidya Lankar, to sing Tuhun Daya Sagara, respectively. So through this pastime, Srila Prabhupada established the importance of performing kirtan only after thoroughly understanding and realizing the deep meanings and the underlying moods of our acharyas' kirtans, rather than being concerned merely with melody and rhythm. However, one should not think that the devotee whose kirtan Srila Prabhupada refused to hear was an ordinary person or interested simply in the melodiousness of kirtan. In fact, he was a topmost kirtaniya. Earlier in Puri, Srila Prabhupada had many times listened to his kirtan with great eagerness. Srila Prabhupada stopped him from singing at that time for no other reason than to establish and teach one particular point of view. Being a Nityasiddha Parikar, an eternally perfect associate of Bhagavan, Srila Prabhupada knows everything. Because he knows past, present, and future, he is referred to as Trikalagya, or omniscient. He understood that the mindless, conditioned living beings of this world pay no mind to the gravity of the moods and the deep meanings of kirtan, and instead, for the sake of earning worldly fame and recognition, they become absorbed in meditating on melody, on tune, and rhythm, thinking such things to be the essence of kirtan. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada used one of his dear associates to deliver this most significant teaching for the benefit of foolish persons like us. Only the most intimate and completely surrendered associates of great realized souls can truly understand the important teachings that they bestow, and through whom, at which opportune moment, they choose to bestow them. Otherwise, after hearing the above-mentioned story, how will one be able to reconcile why Srila Prabhupada himself previously adorned Sri Mohini Babu, the uncle of Sri Śrīmad Bhakti Kumud Santa Goswami Maharaj, with the title Raga Bhushana? Which means one who is ornamented by raga, melody. After being extremely satisfied by hearing his highly melodious kirtans sung in perfect pitch and with flawless rhythm, so then why he allowed the use of such Vaishnav musical instruments as kartals, kangsha, that's the gong that is like solid brass, that's called kangsha, and mridangas during the daily kirtans in the mat. Why he ordered the arrangement of a performance by 108 mridanga players when he re-established Sri Navadvip Dham Parikrama, or why Srila Muni Goswami Maharaj, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, would snatch kartals from the hands of devotees who made even the slightest mistake in playing them properly during kirtan. So this becomes the question. This becomes the question that on one hand, he's teaching that real kirtan is the bhav, the mood, not the melody. But on the other hand, then it's being suggested by Srila Bharati Maharaj, then why would one be able to understand that we see that he's always giving so much somewhat importance and praise to those who are doing kirtan like that? We saw this in our Gurudev too, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. You know, he himself was like topmost kirtaniya with the topmost bhavs and moods, but he had various younger devotees who didn't fully comprehend all those moods and bhavs, even traveling with him, and singing them. But that was for preaching. That was for attracting the masses of people. In this case, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura is in his final moments. He's not interested to just hear a melodious kirtan. He wants to hear the realized kirtan. So, many of our previous acharyas also have established the importance of melody and rhythm in kirtan. Even our Srila Prabhupada, how he sang so melodiously with the harmonium and all. So, and how such considerations correlate with the pastimes of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. For example, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has written in the Prarthana, Suyantre Mishai Gabo Sumadhuratan Anande Koribo Duha Rupa Gunagan. Accompanied by musical instruments, I will sing sweet melodies. In great bliss, I shall perform songs that glorify the form and the qualities of the divine couple. So here, he's quoting from Narottam Das Thakur, who's saying, Suyantri Mishaya Gabo. So, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written, Shri Vishaka Pade Sangita Shikibo Krishna Lila Raso Moy. At the lotus feet of Shri Vishaka, I shall learn music abounding with the nectar of Krishna's pastimes. We can just imagine the artistic abilities. We hear of it all the time, of even the gopis and Srimati Radharani's. They're singing, they're dancing, they're everything, all the arts, perfectly, flawlessly, beautifully. So, then he also says, in another song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Tatai Tatai, Bhajalokol, Ghana Ghana Tai, Janjera Rol. You recognize that one?
Yes.
That's from the Udilo Arana song. And they're talking, and he's mentioning how Mahaprabhu personally is dancing and singing with the accompaniment of the mridangas and Janjera. That's
perfectly
the big...
in time. I think it's in the translation perfectly in time.
The cymbals chimed in time.
Yeah, it says here, the kartals. The mridangas resounded and the kartals played in time. Yes. Then in another song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has mentioned Narada Muni Bhajaya Vina Radhika Ramana Nami in his Gitabali songbook. That Narada Muni's fingers played the notes on his Veena, which chanted Radhika Ramana Radhika Ramana. So, again, that quote is put here. Real kirtan is performed after one properly understands the underlying moods and the deep meanings of that kirtan. I remember Kishore Mohan told me, years ago, how Gurudev trained them up to do kirtan. Gurudev did. And he told to them, now you are doing, what was the word that he used? Like a Hindi word. It means music. What you are doing is not kirtan. It is sangeet. It is sangeet. It is singing and music, right? That is not kirtan. I will teach you how to do kirtan. And they themselves have expressed over the years very nicely how they focused on this. That whatever they would sing, they would try to imbibe very deeply the meaning, the mood of the song, in pursuance of Srila Gurudev's standard and in pursuance of his instructions. And they would always pray very fervently before they even did kirtan and praying for the blessings like that. So then another Vaishnavacharya, he's quoting another song. Another Vaishnavacharya has written Lalita Bajai Vina, Vishaka Mridanga, Pula Chadai Nache Saki Vidya Tunga. Sri Lalita Saki plays the veena, Sri Vishaka Saki plays the drum, and Sri Tunga Vidya Saki dances, strewing flowers all about. Strewing flowers all about. Even Sri Krishna himself, by playing his flute, his horn, and other instruments, has approved the use of musical instruments through his own conduct. In fact, all the 64 arts have been manifested by the Lord simply for his pleasure. So therefore, upon hearing that Srila Prabhupada once refused to hear a melodious kirtan, we should not conclude that the use of Vaishnava musical instruments in kirtan is inappropriate, or that devotees who sing in a sweet melodious voice are to be discouraged from performing kirtan. The actual message is that real kirtan is performed after one properly understands the underlying moods and the deep meanings of that kirtan. However, the aesthetic features of kirtan, such as melody, rhythm, and vocal expression, should not be entirely dismissed, but rather seen as being favorable for bhakti. So in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami, he has quoted in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami has quoted Lokiki Vaidiki Vapi Ya Kriya Kriyate Mune Hari Sevanukulaiva Sakarya Bhaktim Ichata. O Muni, whether a devotee desires to act according to the customs of society or the Vedic injunctions, there's two different things, the customs of society and Vedic injunctions. So whether a devotee desires to act according to these, everything he does is favorable for the service of Sri Hari. Yes, so I often see our children in our little Gurukula here singing the songs, like in Noon Artik, being given the opportunity to lead the kirtan and so forth. And they're learning melodious kirtan singing and so forth. But being children and not really being taught the meaning of what they're singing, that is something that I see lacking. Why? Because whatever a child learns when they're very young, right, it stays, it goes very deep into their subconscious mind even, you know. So if they're not taught the meaning of the songs that they're singing, just like, for example, you know the story, the first time that Srila Prabhupada came to visit the Gurukula, the first official Gurukula in Dallas, Texas, right? And the teachers had trained their students to recite a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And they recited it in Sanskrit very nicely. Then Prabhupada asked them, so, can you now tell the meaning? No one could tell. And then Srila Prabhupada told them, no, this is not...
Education.
Huh?
Education, go ahead.
Yeah, this is not the way of teaching them. They must be taught the meaning. They must be taught the meaning. So, you know, I've mentioned this before, but I'm just saying it again, that there should be a period in their the beginning their school. I mean, like I've told many times, I was brought up and went to a Christian grade school where we recited for the first hour. We recited different prayers and hymns. We sang different hymns and like that, and heard the stories of the Bible. 1 hour every morning before we would even begin our education. So I know that here they also have a kirtan. They do a Guru Puja like that. But there must be song classes, at least for the songs that are sung daily. Like, for example, Jasomati Nandana Brajavaranadana Gokula Ranjana Kana. What is that song? That song is actually Nam Kirtan. It's the chanting of the names of Krishna. And also Udilo Arana Puravabhage, Vibhavari Shesha Aloka Pravesha. Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari, Rama Krishna Hayagriva. It's all the names of the Lord. So to not enable the children to learn this, even just by memory, that they can recite it. There's a way of drilling. There's a way of drilling them that what does Yasomati Nandana mean? And then even having them write Yasomati Nandana. And then writing in English the meaning of it. The son of Mother Yashoda. And I quizzed them just the other day, and it's been after 2 years that I've been here. And they haven't learned that song. They can't tell what is the meaning of the words, of the different names. So that is essential. And then gradually over time, by their singing the songs and occasionally thinking about the names of Krishna and the meaning of these names, then gradually they'll gain the moods of Krishna Nam Samkirtan. So, there's one more section here. It's getting a little later now. So I'll just read this another section, because actually this is so beautiful. This is very long. It's one of the nicest summaries of Srila Prabhupada's glorification and character. So now the next section is titled Bhava Grahi Srila Prabhupada. So you know this term Bhava Grahi? There's a name of Krishna. His name is called Bhava Grahi Janardana. Ever heard that? The name Janardan, Bhava Grahi. So Bhava Grahi means the Lord Janardana, who accepts the bhav of his devotee. Grahi means to take, to accept. He takes that, the mood of his devotee. So they're saying here, Bhava Grahi Srila Prabhupada, that he also is like that. So when Śrīmad Bhaktivaibhav Sagar Goswami Maharaj, who was a sannyasi disciple of Srila Prabhupada, would speak Harikatha during his preaching, only few could understand his preaching, could understand him, because his expression of speech was largely incomprehensible. And although everyone in the audience would gradually leave one by one during his lectures, he would continue speaking. And seeing the hall empty, a couple brahmacharis accompanying Maharaj would request him, Maharaj, you may stop your speech now, no one is present. We will begin packing up the mats and folding all the rugs in the kirtan hall. But Maharaj, what's his name? Bhaktivaibhav Sagar Goswami Maharaj, sannyasi disciple of Prabhupada. But then when his disciples would tell, but Maharaj, he would reply, you're unable to understand. You are aware only of the entities present in their gross bodies who have now left. Why? Who left? The audience, the members. So they've all left. And And so the disciples assisting him, they told him, Maharaj, no, everyone is gone, you can stop.
There's other people present in the
And he said, you are unable to understand. You are aware only of the entities present in their gross bodies who have now left. There are many living entities present here in their subtle bodies, as well as other living beings nearby, like trees, creepers, and insects. And they are all listening. Moreover, I am speaking for my own spiritual welfare. What? He's doing what?
Speaking for his own spiritual welfare.
Yes. If anyone stays and listens, they will also be benefited. Will I not be spiritually benefited by speaking Harikatha even if no one is present? Did Srila Prabhupada not instruct us to perform Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, that is to perpetually engage in the service of Srimad Bhagavatam through Shravan and Kirtan? Or did he instruct us to engage in such Bhagavat Seva as a demonstration only to be performed when a certain number of listeners are present? Huh? Only when what?
When the people are present.
A certain number of listeners.
Yeah.
But he's told Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So, a few devotees eventually brought Srila Sagar Goswami Maharaj's views on these incidents to the attention of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Sagar Goswami Maharaj was also not well adept at collecting significant donations. He was also not adept. And once when Srila Maharaj was returning to Calcutta, he did not even have sufficient funds to pay for his train ticket. And so he boarded the train without a ticket, along with the two brahmacharis accompanying him. And then upon arriving at the Calcutta railway station, the three were detained for traveling without tickets. The news of this quickly reached Srila Prabhupada at the Kolkata Mutt. Later, when Srila Sagar Maharaj reached the Kolkata Mutt, Srila Prabhupada sent his disciples to welcome Srila Maharaj with some kirtan, and Prabhupada said, Sri Sagar Maharaj is truly a Jivan Mukta Mahapurusha, a great, completely liberated personality. Srila Prabhupada, the pure servant of Bhavagrahi, what name of Krishna?
Bhavagrahi Janardana.
Yes. Srila Prabhupada, the pure servant of Bhavagrahi Janardana, that is, Sri Krishna, who accepts the mood and the intention of one's service, rather than the external paraphernalia used, he, Prabhupada, would acknowledge, and he would appreciate the mood and the favorable disposition of those engaged in the service of Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas with a pure, sincere heart devoid of duplicity. That's what he was accepting. He was completely aloof from the consideration of such external qualifications as one's eloquence in delivering Harikatha or one's ability to collect large donations for the mutt. Through this pastime, Srila Prabhupada established the standard of complete impartiality and freedom from envy and duplicity. His conduct should be followed by all sincere devotees. My Siksha Guru, Sripad Krishna Keshava Prabhu, who had taken shelter of Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Prabhupāda, resided in the mutt. His father, Sri Sarveshwara Das Adhikari, who was not initiated at the time, came to Sri Dham Mayapur during Sri Gaur Purnima with the intention of taking his son back home to Assam. However, upon meeting Srila Prabhupada and witnessing his conduct, hearing his Harikatha, and observing his illuminating influence, as well as that of his surrendered disciples, he not only dismissed all thoughts of taking his son back home, but what?
He stayed himself.
He also desired to accept Harinam initiation from Srila Prabhupada. Now, seeing the aspiring devotees with shaven heads waiting outside Srila Prabhupada's Bhajan Kutir to take Harinam, he too shaved his head and he joined them. You got that?
Yes.
At that time, one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples came to him as he's waiting there, and he said, "You will not be able to receive Harinam today because you have a habit of smoking cigarettes and bidis." Then he replied, "If this habit of mine is preventing me from being accepted as Srila Prabhupada's disciple, then from this moment onward I will not even so much as touch cigarettes or bidis." Now, having overheard the conversation from inside his bhajan kutir, Srila Prabhupada told his disciple, "Please call for this gentleman at once. I shall award him Harinam initiation today." Because he was a realized soul, Srila Prabhupada could understand the implied meaning of simple-hearted statements. He knew whether a person was determined or simply sentimentally speaking under the influence of the occasion. And from then on, Sri Sarveshwara Das Adhikari would remember. He would remember like this: in order to receive Harinam from a Mahapurusha, I have taken a vow to never again smoke cigarettes or bidi. And he thus led a life based on Vaishnava principles and never once touched cigarettes or bidi again. Then, once a person with the desire to receive Harinam approached Srila Prabhupada and said with a simple heart, here's another case, "Maharaj, I have led an abominable life, and I have eaten various types of meat, including even pork. I am now taking a vow to renounce all such detestable activities. Will you please accept me as a servant of your lotus feet?" Now, although there were many persons who, despite residing in the mutt for some years, were never awarded Harinam or Diksha, Srila Prabhupada, recognizing the man's simplicity and sincerity, he awarded him Harinam initiation. Now, the mutt is a place for performing Mahat Seva. That's what the mutt is for Mahat Seva. You know what Mahat Seva is?
Service to the great souls?
Yes, to the pure devotees, the Mahat. There's a verse in the teachings of Lord Rishabhdev, Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktes. That Mahat Seva, service to the Mahat, is the door, opens the door to liberation. Then the second line after that says something Sangi Sangam. But the opposite, the association of the materialistic persons who are attached and attracted to the opposite sex and enjoyment, they are the cause of great degradation. So here he's telling that because the creation of mutts, temples, and monasteries will eventually, you were reading about this morning in his article, they will eventually lead to their residents engaging in court cases and infighting over external considerations. And because of that, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Thakur advised not to establish them. Yet, Srila Prabhupada, considering the positive aspects of creating such institutions, established many mutts. His intention was to provide those who, though possessing a desire to do so, were unable to perform bhajan on their own due to their uncontrolled senses. He was providing them an opportunity to receive the association and the mercy of great realized souls. Srila Prabhupada used to say, although Bhagavan makes himself known through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, this is his quote from him, although Bhagavan makes himself known through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, it is impossible to gain entry into the deeper meanings of the Shastras without attaining the mercy of realized devotees. Sri Jad-bharat, Sri Prahlad, and Sri Rishabhdev have thus emphasized the importance of Mahat Sangha by stating, respectively, Vina Mahat Pada Rajo Bhishekam. That's Prahlad Maharaj. Unless a person smears on his body the dust of the lotus feet of elevated, realized devotees, he cannot realize the absolute truth. Next quote. Mahiyasam Pada Rajo Bhishekam Niskinchananam Na Vrinita Yavat. It is impossible for those who do not smear themselves with the foot dust of great devotees who are fully detached from mundane sense objects to touch the glories of Sri Krishna. And the final quote, Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktes, the one I mentioned. Only by rendering service to Mahatmas can one attain the path of liberation from material bondage. So, although a place may externally appear to be a mutt, and though it may be advertised as such, it cannot be called a mutt in the truest sense of the word if within its walls there is no arrangement for hearing and speaking Harikatha. All activities performed at such a place are simply karma. Did you hear that one? It's karma. If they're not making arrangements for hearing and speaking Harikatha. I'm going to highlight that one for my own notes. That's a really good one. The fruits of karma lead only to destinations within the 14 planetary systems and not beyond. So he's not saying sinful activity, but he's just saying it's karma. It's not actually bhakti. And what is the fruit of that? Pious act. Oh, you can go to heavenly planets. So as a result of engaging in Mahat Seva, however, one can attain even the qualification to serve Sri Sri Radha Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, the topmost realm of Vaikuntha. So, Srila Prabhupada has said, a person who resides in the mutt without hearing and speaking Harikatha simply performs karma. In other words, if a person proudly claims to be a resident of the mutt, but he neglects to actively participate in hearing and speaking Harikatha, then his mutt vas is purely superficial and he does not truly reside in the mutt. So, we'll finish here. There's so many more wonderful sections. Navadvip Panjika, the astrological, the importance of remembering the Vaishnavas. That's a good section. Maybe we'll read some tomorrow. But affectionate service is great service. Reestablishing Sri Dham Parikrama. So many more. So many more. It's a long article. Long article. Yes, so all glories to Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura ki jai. Transcendental Appearance Day of Srila Prabhupada, the Savior of the whole world. Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura.
Jaya Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura.
Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva.
Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva.
Jaya Nitai, Jaya Gaur, Jaya Nitai, Jaya Gaur, Jaya Nitai, Jaya Gaur, Jaya Nitai, Jaya Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai. Śrīla Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Śrī Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gauru Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo